everyone, it's Deb from Aussie Maille. Sorry for the delay tonight. We have been having a few technical difficulties. I'm hoping everybody can see me now and we can get on with this. Alright. I'm not getting any response, so can you see me?
I can see you, baby.
Alright. Hey, hi Di. Hey Cassandra, how you going? Alright, so as I said, sorry about that guys. I don't know what went wrong. We had to reset everything a few times before it came good.
Swear it a bit more.
Yep. Okay, alright. Glad to see everybody here. We seem to have a few with us. Hey Shirley and Rodney, Kerry, Susie, Jenny, Joe. So I've been seeing that I missed entering the name of the stream correctly, so my apologies for that. That's what happens when you cut and paste.
Yo, cut and paste.
Hi, Hithwin. I hope I've pronounced that. Hey Dana, how you going? Hey Brizzy, good to see you, and Ace. Hey Anna. Alright guys, well, since we're a little bit late, we might jump into this already. How's it looking for you, Chris?
It did buffer for a little bit, but we're back now.
Okay, because I've got some dropped frame rates and things going on. Alright guys, I'll switch this over to the other camera, which I hope is still working. And we will make a move. Oh yay, look at that, it's still working. Alright, so as I said, we're doing DragonScale tonight in lieu of a new weave because of the delay in getting the Maille Club out this month. So this is an existing kit for Aussie Maille, but I've got a couple of different variants here to show you. Now, unfortunately, I've seem to have misplaced my actual finished pieces, so I've only got some bits and bobs. So just to give you an idea of some of the sizes that you can use, DragonScale you can use a lot of combinations with. The main rules that you need to keep in mind is that the rings you're using, the two rings you're using, the small rings need to fit inside of the larger ring, and that small ring needs to be about 3 times the inner diameter needs to be about 3 times the width of the wire that's being used for the large outer ring. So as long as you've got those two measurements in consideration, you can use a wide variety of gauges and ring IDs as long as they meet all of those criteria. So to give you an idea of some of the different things you can use, this is square wire. This is 14 gauge, the large rings, the sky blue rings are 14 gauge AWG, which is 1.6 millimeter diameter wire. These are 3/8 of an inch or 9.53 centimeters. And inside we've got 16 gauge AWG or 1.2 millimeter diameter wire. And the ring ID is 1/4 inch or 6.35 mils. You can use those same size in round wire. You can see the round wire is quite more open than what the square wire looks. In that size, I much prefer the square wire. Okay. Also using square wire, but just for the inner ones. So the large outer rings are 16 gauge, 1.2 millimeter diameter wire with a ring ID of 5/16 of an inch. And the inside rings are square wire. Again, they're 1.2 millimeter and they are 3/16 of an inch. So that gives it again another slightly different look with the square wire on the inside. This one here is 16 gauge again on the outside, this time using 7/32 of an inch or 5.56. And the inner rings are 20 gauge, which is 0.8 millimeters. And they're, in this case, they're 4 mils, but you could use 5/32 in there as well if you wanted color on the inside. So that's a really nice, dense type weave there. You can see this one here is quite loose. I prefer the nice stencil look. Another version here in 18 gauge. So the rings on the outside of this one, let me see if I can find my notes. So 18 gauge, which is 1 mil diameter wire. The ring ID is 5.75, and the anodized again is 18 gauge with a ring ID of 9/64 or 3.57. You can use 6 for the outside as well. I've got a small piece made up. I didn't like the 6. I started with 6. It gave it a slightly more open look. And I decided I wanted to go a little bit tighter, which is why I went for the 5.75. Okay, and the last one that I made up, this one is all in 20 gauge, which is 0.8 millimeter diameter wire. Now the rings on the outside, the bright aluminium rings are 4.5 millimeters, and the anodized rings on the inside, they're 7/64 or 2.7674 mils, whatever that calculates out to. I've had a brain fart. That one is beautiful and delicate, but oh man, it's going to take you a long time to make that one up. And while I was digging around trying to find my sample pieces, I found these stretchy versions that I tried quite some time ago. I'm not a fan of DragonScale in the stretchy, because when you do stretch it, some of these rings on the outside don't tend to come back in properly, and gives it a bit of a jagged look. But this is 16 gauge, 3/16 on the inside in the rubber, in the EPDM, and I'm assuming about a 7 mil on the outside. I don't have these measured, but I'm assuming they're about the same sort of rings. But you can see that they don't come in neatly, that some of the rings don't sit properly, which is why I'm not a fan of that. And this one again is using the 1/4 inch in the 14 gauge rings, the 1.6 millimeter rings in EPDM. I'm assuming the outside is again about the 3/8. I haven't measured it, I just found these late this afternoon. It holds its shape better, but there's not as much stretch. So anyway, there's probably more information than you want. As you can see, you can use a different range of sizes and materials to make this.
I like the stretchy ones.
You like the stretchy ones? Of course you would. Chris is guaranteed to like everything I don't like, so. Alright, so I'll start making this. We start off with what basically looks like a piece of Helm with single small rings, not with double. So if you just start by making up a small piece of Helm, I'll do that now. Now I'm assuming that you know how to make Helm. If you don't, we've got several demonstrations of it on our various videos on here, so you can visit those and have a better look at a more detailed tutorial. So I'm just going to make this 3 pairs wide. You can make this as wide or as thin as you like. Just a minute, I'm short a couple of rings here. Okay. Not quite as prepared as I'd hoped I'd be. Alright. So still making up our Helm. So have I missed any comments or questions, Chris, while I was rabbiting on?
No, we're all good.
We're all good.
The pink one seems popular.
This one? Oops.
Yep.
The dark rose?
Yep.
Yeah, it's actually quite pretty, that one. I was quite happy with that one. All right, so you've got your small starting section of what's basically a helm weave, but we're just putting our single small rings in, and then you don't necessarily need to have a twist tie. I like to put a twist tie in what's going to be the first sort, like the middle ring in the bottom row there, so that I know where I started. And I'm going to just separate these rings out a little bit. Now our first step that we want to make after this is we've got 3 large rings here, and I want to put 3 small rings in place as well. Okay, so I'm going to join that. So we've got 3 large rings, and then we've got 2 large rings. Small rings always go into large rings, and large rings always go into small rings. So try to keep that in mind. And when we're working with our little rings, we go into the previous row of large rings in this case. So I'm going to go and pick up both those 2 rings that are in the middle. And sometimes it's easier to just go through the back, pick them up through the back and close it up. And I want to make sure, you can see here, by doing it that way, you can see that my little ring is sitting on top of the big ring that's underneath it. I need that to be in there, okay? So that it's tucked away inside that ring. We don't want it sitting on top of the ring. That'll bind it all up, and you won't be able to go very far. So I've placed the first of our small rings. I want to take another small ring, and I'm going to hang it off, again working 1 row back in the large rings. I'm going to hang it off the large ring there on the right side, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to hang it off the right ring, the large ring on the left side. Now it's all a little bit thumbs and fingers at this stage. You've really got to work at keeping it all in place, making sure that none of these little rings slip out of place. Now for anybody that's done our written tutorial, I'm going to do this a little bit different than what our written tutorial is set out for. So our written tutorial, we would now be launching into large rings, but I'm going to again pick up another set of small rings because it's a little bit easier doing it this way. And this time I'm going to, so we've got 3 small rings, 3 large rings. I now want to place 2 small rings. And again, I'm going to place that through the large rings, and we're going to go through that ring there that are on top, close that up, and I'm going to do the same to the other pair. Now you can see that these are moving all around. As I said, it'll do this for the first couple of rows. So again, I'm going to join these 2 top rings, large top rings. Okay. All right. So I've got 2 small rings. I now need to place 2 large rings. So the pattern is 2 small, 2 large, 3 small, 3 large. So you can always tell where you're up to. You can see that our top rings here in our small are 2, but we've only got 3. We've got 3 large rings here. So that means we're missing our 2 large rings that we want to place. And when we place our large rings, we place them through, not the small rings we just placed, but the small rings in the previous row. Okay, and to do that we want to go through this ring here that's on the side, and through the ring on the middle so that it encircles the small ring that we just placed. Okay, and we close that up. Oops, sorry. Okay, so our work looks there. You can see that I've got that ring encircling, and we want to do the same on the other side. Now you can see that this ring's moved out of place, so make sure before you place your large rings that all your little rings are sitting where they're supposed to be. And we're going to go through the middle ring again and then through the ring on the edge so that it encircles the small ring that we just placed, just like that. Okay, we'll close that up. So we've now got 2 small rings, 2 large rings, so we want to place 3 small rings now. And to do that, we go to the 2 large rings that we just placed, and we're going to hang 3 rings off there. So I like to place our center one first, just to keep everything all in place. So we go through each of those large rings, and then our small rings hang off each side of the large ring. Okay, so that they sit like that. And then, because we've got 3 large rings, 3 small rings, our next rings that we place are our large rings. And remember, with our large rings, we go through the previous row of small rings. Okay, so again, to do that, I like to start in the center. It helps tighten things up. So going down to our second row, or our previous row of small rings, which is the 2, we go through those 2 like that. Okay, encircling that middle 3rd ring, and we close that up. And then to place the other 2 rings, we go through the small ring on the side, just that small ring there. It doesn't go through anything else. It'll get locked into place later. And then we do the same on the other side. We put the big ring through the small ring and close it up, so that when they sit in place, you can see that they just naturally sit around those 3rd small rings. Okay, there are a few different ways of doing it, Nat. There are ways that involve obviously having the small rings closed, so you can do the stretchy. There are techniques where you use the large rings. There are other techniques where you put the large rings in first and then you do the small rings afterwards. I quite like this one. It's a little bit easier. Okay, so we've got 3 small rings in place. So our top row, if you were to put this down and come back and you can't remember what row you're up to, look at your work. Like I said, this reminds me that this is my bottom, this is my underneath, this is where I started, so this is my working row here. And I can see I've got my top row of small rings are 3, and my top row of big rings are 3. So I now need to go to 2. But if I had say had just a top row of 3 little rings and 2 big rings, I would know that my next rings would be my 3 big rings, because it's always the pattern of 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3. So now I want to place my 2 small rings. Again, the small rings go through just the big rings only of the top row there. So I'm just going to scoop up that one there, and then do the same on the other side so that I've placed both of my rings. Now, generally doing it this way, the rings do seem to sit better, but you can see this one here has slipped out. We always want to make sure that we've got these rings tucked inside at the back. So always, you know, pop your work over, have a look, make sure that none of those rings are popping out over the top, that they're all tucked away, and it won't bind up on you. Okay, so we've got placed 2 small rings, so we need to place our 2 large rings, and our large rings go into the previous row. Okay, so go through the one on the end and the one on the middle, so that it encircles the ring that we just placed. And we do the same on the other side. We go through the middle and then around the ring on the left side and close it up. And basically you just keep doing that until you get the length that you need. So we've placed, we can see we've got 2 small rings, we've got 2 large rings. Our next row is 3 small rings. And again, like I said, I like to place the middle one first. I just feel it stabilizes everything out a little bit easier. That placement's totally up to you. So we place our 3 small rings, 1 in the middle and 1 on each side, that just sort of flaps around but will get locked into place. Oops. And then on the other side as well. Okay, so we've got our 3 small rings in place. And then placing our large rings, we go to the previous row of small rings, not the row that we've just placed, but the previous row. Okay, we're always working through the previous row there. And we need to place 1, 2, 3 because we've got 3 small rings. So to do that, we just go again through the, I like to place the center, so I go through those 2 rings there in the middle, close it up, and then through the same rings, just 1 on each side. And on the left side, through the ring there. Okay. So is everybody happy with that? Do you want me to keep going a little bit further, or are we fine with this?
I think they've all been paying attention because there's been no
No chatting.
Just to go back, Dana did ask if you could say again what the small ring sizes of the square rings were.
For the all square version?
Yeah, I think that's the one she was talking
The all
about.
square version, the small rings are 16 gauge, 1.2 millimeter wire, 1/4 inch ring ID. Everyone's totally fine. They don't need me to go any further with it. It is basically just a helm, and you can see your ring placements, you know, if you look to previous ones, you can see they all just stack up on top of each other. The pattern is just repeated. So if you're confused about where to place a ring, look to the previous rows and you can see. Okay, so I'm up to placing my 2 small rings, and I can see here all the way down that my 2 small rings are here, here, here. So when I place my next ones, I'm just going to place them in there like that. Okay, you just need to follow the previous pattern. So once you get past the first row, where you're setting the pattern into place, it all just follows the same pattern. It's just the first couple of rows while you're getting it started are a little bit different. All right, well, if everybody's fine with that, is Julie going with it? Because Julie...
She said she was totally fine. I asked if she was now ready to complete that project.
Yeah, this is slightly different to the printed version, Julie, of the tutorial that you would have. I just found this way is actually a little bit easier. So that's why I went with it tonight, doing the little rings first. I think with the tutorial that Julie and the workshop that Julie and Dana came to, I think I showed them both techniques then, but that was a few years ago. So, alrighty then, I've used up all my prepared rings. So if everyone's good with that, you continue with the one you started a month ago. Yeah, Julie, I remember that. I do remember that workshop. We had that one here, didn't we?
Yeah.
And yeah, there were, I think I showed you the way that the tutorial was written and then that way. And I've never been happy with my written tutorial, to be honest. I've never been happy with it. So I think I will go back and redo that, and I might actually do it with that technique because it is just that little bit easier. The other one's okay if the rings aren't too tight, but if you're making a dense weave, the other one tends to be a little bit more fiddly, doing it the other way. So yet another tutorial on the list to rewrite because I don't have enough of those. Oh, Jenny, I'm glad it started to make sense to you. But yeah, just, I mean, always go back and have a look at this video once it gets put up on our channel.
And we'll fix the title.
So and I'll fix the title. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't even notice that the other day. I only thought what to do the other day at the last minute, so...
Good choice, I reckon. I love DragonScale.
I'm running from fire to fire at the moment, so you'll have to excuse me if I drop the ball occasionally. I'm doing my best. Now, Emma, the emails haven't gone out because of the delay that was caused in the previous month through getting ready for the show, through Chris being sick, through me being sick. Chris is still having a lot of his time taken up with doctor's appointments and things at the moment. So we are very busy right now and we are doing our best to get everything out to you guys on time. I will have the emails out before next Saturday, before the new weave goes live, because next Saturday will be the first of the new weaves, which is the 3/4 Persian weave. And I still have to work out how I'm going to do that demonstration because neither of the kits are a straight version of the weave.
Carla's asking if you've done that in a purse. She'd like in a little purse, she's thinking.
No, I've never done anything like that.
Could you do it as a sheep? Because you'd need to do a sheep version, wouldn't you?
You'd have to, I don't know that you would, well, it is a sheep version.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can make this as wide as you want.
Yep.
Shenanigans is like a 2-row version of this or a single version of this. Shenanigans is DragonScale, basically. Yeah. So you can make it as wide as you want, but you would then have to come up with a way of joining it because, except for the stretchy, it doesn't bend in half.
Ah, that would be a problem with the purse, wouldn't it?
So you'd have to...
use the stretchy version.
I think stretchy is probably better for a purse of some sort because otherwise it's very, very open. It doesn't bend, basically. It curves, but it doesn't bend.
I hope that answers your question, Carla.
With just square wire. Okay, so I've got this one. I'll put it back on the other camera. Okay,
Maybe
so
next as well.
This one is straight, square, and this one here is square on the inside. Those little red rings on the inside are actually square. I think if you can see that, you can see that that's a square profile, and the rings on the outside are round. So you absolutely can mix them. Yeah, look, it's a fairly forgiving weave. You can do quite a lot with it, but yeah, you can't bend this. It doesn't bend at all. So the stretchy, because the rings are stretchy, they're more forgiving. They can bend. Yeah. Maybe you could do it with stretchy, but actually joining it, you'd have to do sheets and then join them somehow. I've got to think that's going to look a bit mucky, but I've never done it. And if someone wants to do it, I would love to see it.
Yeah.
Okay. You bring the ones you've already finished. Well, we will be having a show us your mail, Julie, so...
Please do.
Leanne, all those ring sizes, nearly all those ring sizes that I showed tonight are actually in the Facebook event. You can go there and have a look. The only ones that's not there, I think, are quite possibly the 18 gauge ones. But most of those ring sizes are already in that image that Hyperlinks produced. Hey, Brett. Good to see you. Come right at the end, though, mate. We're all done. Okay.
Carol must have slept in because she came very late as well, just as you finished up.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Oh, no. No good. Had some brain malfunction. Oh, Julie, I have brain malfunction. See, I can't even get the word out. Doing well tonight. Forgot which day is today. I do that a lot too, Carol, especially when the kids aren't at school, because when they're not at school, I don't have much of a schedule. So, yeah, I forget the days a lot as well. All right, guys, so as I said, next week is 3/4 Persian. I'll show you the finished pieces, why not, while I'm here, since you guys don't have the thing. So, one of them is this bracelet for the Maille Club. I'm not sure how I'm going to run the tutorial yet because I'm not going to have time to show you how to complete the full bracelet. But that's the bracelet, and the other kit for Maille Club members was this cabochon wrap. So I'm hoping all you guys enjoy that. But like I said, I've got to think of how I'm going to structure this weave next week. All right. Good grief, really? All right, guys, well, that's it for tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I'm really sorry that we were so late starting, but at least we got here. I was beginning to think we were going to have to cancel this. What was I going to say? So Maille Club is open for November's kits for anybody that wants to sign up. And thank you very much to those that have signed up this month. I think we got our first UK member this month, which was very...
Another continent.
Onto another continent, which was very exciting to see. MailleCon, of course, is happening frightfully soon. All right. And, yeah, we're busy working towards both of those. All right, so there's no one I prepared earlier. Yeah. If there's no further questions or anything then, guys, we might call it a night, since we've gone a little bit later than we normally would. Night, Margaret, thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed it, Carla. All right, lovely peeps, I will see you next week with the new weave. I will have the tutorials out to the Maille Club members by then. It'll be head down and bum up for the week, trying to get them all done. And we are having some issues with the backorder catalogue emails. If we can just ask everybody to be patient for those that haven't received them. Chris has been putting a lot of work into it, and we will get them out to you for the back catalogue. If you want to have make them, the videos are all up on YouTube, so you don't actually need the tutorials. The paper tutorials, the videos are all there for you. It's good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope we get to see you next week as well. All right. Thanks, everybody. And I will catch up with you next week. All right, guys. Take care. Mwah!